It started as a story that sounded almost ordinary, children getting hurt in ways that were quickly explained away as everyday accidents. But as more details surfaced, those explanations began to fall apart. Before going further, viewers are urged to hit the subscribe button and turn on their notification bells so you can get first-hand updates on this story and others as they continue to unfold. At the beginning, adults close to the family described the children's injuries as routine and harmless. Bruises were blamed on falls, bumps into furniture, on normal rough play. These explanations were delivered calmly and confidently, creating the impression that nothing serious had happened. On the surface, it all sounded believable. Children do get hurt, and not every bruise is a sign of danger. For a brief time, that framing kept deeper concerns at bay. But as investigators and professionals began to look more closely, cracks quickly appeared. Medical observations did not fully align with the stories being told. Some bruises were located in areas less consistent with simple falls. Others appeared to be at different stages of healing, suggesting they occurred at separate times rather than in one isolated incident. What initially looked like bad luck began to resemble a pattern. One injury in particular drew attention: Lily's black eye. Witnesses could not agree on when it first appeared or how it happened. Some claimed it was noticed one day, while others insisted it appeared much later. A few said they had seen Lilly without the injury at times when it should have already been visible. These inconsistencies made it difficult to establish a clear timeline. Private messages added another layer of concern. In digital communications, adults expressed worry about Lily's appearance, sometimes questioning how serious the injury might be. Yet those same conversations often shifted toward minimizing the harm, reassuring one another that it was not a big deal or that it had already been explained. The mixed tone of concern and dismissal raised questions about whether the full truth was being avoided. As attention focused on Lilly, investigators discovered that Jack had also shown signs of injury. Facial bruising had appeared earlier, but explanations for it were vague and often changed. Some adults described the injuries as old, others said they were new, and some struggled to remember when they had first noticed them at all. This lack of clarity stood out, especially given that facial injuries are hard to miss. Medical assessment suggested that some of Jack's bruises may have occurred earlier than reported. That raised troubling questions. If the injuries were noticed before, why was no medical care sought? Why were they not documented or discussed more clearly at the time? The shifting explanations weakened confidence in the accounts provided. When investigators stepped back and looked at both children together, the situation became more alarming. This was no longer about one unexplained injury. It was about repeated harm across two children within the same environment. Accidental injuries tend to be random, but repeated bruising, especially with unclear explanations, suggests ongoing risk. The idea that everything could be explained by coincidence became harder to defend. Private communications between adults revealed an unsettling pattern. Publicly and officially, injuries were often downplayed. Privately, messages showed anxiety, uncertainty, and even fear. In some cases, adults reassured others that the children were fine while simultaneously expressing concern that something was wrong. This contradiction suggested internal conflict and possible awareness that the situation was not normal. Investigators paid close attention to how memories shifted over time. Details changed depending on who was being asked and when. Some adults forgot key moments, while others recalled events differently in later interviews. While memory lapses can happen under stress, repeated inconsistencies around critical events raised red flags. Authorities began treating these gaps not as harmless mistakes, but as significant anomalies. Records from schools and child welfare agencies added important context. Reports made before the investigation had already noted bruising and raised concerns about possible neglect. Teachers and staff had observed signs that something might be wrong, long before the case gained wide attention. These reports challenged claims that the injuries were sudden or unexpected. As the investigation widened, allegations of substance misuse and domestic instability emerged. While these claims alone did not prove abuse, they painted a picture of a household under strain. Investigators recognized these factors as known risk contributors, especially when combined with inconsistent supervision and repeated injuries. One of the most troubling discoveries was the inability of adults to clearly explain who was responsible for watching the children at key times. Accounts of who was present in the home often conflicted. Some adults could not say who was supervising the children when injuries occurred, or who noticed them first. This lack of accountability made it difficult to determine responsibility and raised serious concerns about the children's safety. In response to the growing number of unanswered questions, authorities launched an extensive investigation. Forensic examinations were conducted. Digital records and private communications were reviewed. Witnesses were interviewed multiple times to compare statements and identify inconsistencies. Every detail was carefully documented in an effort to reconstruct an accurate timeline. What began as a series of simple explanations slowly transformed into a complex and troubling case. Repeated injuries, conflicting stories, and shifting memories forced investigators to look beyond surface-level narratives. The focus shifted from isolated incidents to a broader examination of the children's environment and the adults responsible for their care. As the case continues, one reality is impossible to ignore. Children depend entirely on adults for protection, honesty, and stability. When explanations do not match evidence, and when concern is minimized instead of addressed, the consequences can be severe. This investigation stands as a reminder that vigilance matters, and that small inconsistencies, when ignored, can grow into something far more serious.